Hello, this is my video on my spinning wheels, and I'm going to talk about the first two that I made. This is the first one, and it has changed so much from when I originally made it that it is nothing like the original. In fact, I don't remember how the original went, but I know that I had to unsolder everything and move this whole top piece around and pedal it differently because the way I had put the pedal in was completely non-functional. I don't remember how I did it, but it just wouldn't work. So it changed a lot, and I've changed it considerable. The original wheel had a bendable piece of copper for the center shaft, and the copper piece went out, and then it bent down and bent over. And the trouble with having the copper piece come out and go down and over was that if you got out of sync a tiny bit and pushed it down at the wrong time, it would bend the shaft, and you'd have to stop and straighten out the shaft. And so I decided recently, well, a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, that I was going to set this thing up again. And I kind of got it going. I decided I'd put some weights on it and give it a little more oomph on the flywheel, and it didn't quite do it. Anyway, so if we get in here close, you can see how the wire, I just took a long piece of this 6-gauge copper, I think it's 6 gauge, and I bent it around the shaft, and then it comes up like this, and it ends, so it comes up to here, and it ends, let me go a different, I'm going to start with this one here, if I can get it. So this one right here, the top one here, comes around like this and goes down to here, and it joins with this one, and then this one here finishes out to this place. And then this one starts in the center, comes around like this, meets up with the one before it, all right, and comes around to here. And I wrapped some wire around these to hold these two together and soldered them. All right. Now, so the wires, all I did was I started with a piece of wire, I bent it around, and then as you can see from this, it goes out, straight out, goes up a little bit, comes over. I used the width of the needle nose pliers to decide this distance, the widest point of the needle nose pliers, and I used the smallest distance of the needle nose to make this bend. And then I don't remember what I used in here. Maybe a piece of wood, who knows, but something this distance. Comes around, goes around, does the next one, does another one, and whenever you run out, I think I actually, when I was doing this, I started in the middle someplace, and then ran out here, and then did another one, and another one, and another one, and then just kept sliding them around. And so they go all the way around. This one is lower than this one, the idea being that you would get a little more gear ratio out of, you'd get a smaller gear ratio from this one than you would with this one. I don't know if it was really worth half an inch or whatever to do it, but that's the way I did it. All of this is 1/2-inch copper tubing. It's all sweated together except for this piece, which I think is supposed to be attached, but it isn't. Oh well. When there's a string on it, it's not going to go anywhere. The pedal, so the pedal is in there, and it would pedal. Now, this has a very small pulley on it, and the thing about this design is that you can put whatever size pulley you want on it, as long as it doesn't interfere with this or anything else. When I made this, I liked the idea of having the spiral in here, and I used bronze bushings inside of there, which was a bad idea. This one has a nylon bushing, which is a good idea. Anyway, so this is the first one. The second one has 2 treadles. This is a little bit bigger. I don't know if I can figure out how much bigger without doing something. So we'll say it's about 16 inches. And I think the other one I'm going to show later is about 16 inches too. 16 inches is a pretty good size. This is attached to a quarter inch bronze shaft. And that's what goes on here. And it's 1/4 inch. And I'm pretty sure that I just threaded that. Put a threaded it with a die so that I could put a nut on it. These things are movable. Yes, they are, I promise. All the rest of it's soldered together. This isn't, so that you can take it apart and change bobbins, do whatever you have to do. But, excuse me. So it works like any other double treadle wheel. There's a teeter-totter, and so it pushes it around and pulls it around, pushes and pulls, and that's how it works. I don't know if I can... The copper that I used for this is all 3/8 inch tubing. It is bendable tubing. So all I had to do was straighten it out, and I could use fittings for this. I'm sure I went to a great deal of trouble to make this and to be able to put the bronze rod on it. There has to be something other than just a hole and solder to keep this from wobbling around inside of there. So I'm pretty sure I put a bronze bushing somewhere in here so that the bronze rod could solder here and farther back. I'm sure that's what I did, but it's been 10 years at least since I made one. So I don't have any definitive answers on how I did things. There are a million ways to make things work, and so this was just how I came up with it. I think 8 minutes. If you have, I'm sure I missed all kinds of stuff. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. The break for this is just, I put a bronze or brass nut on here and one on the other side and soldered them to the copper tubing. Bronze nut, copper tubing, bronze nut on the other side, so that I could put a bronze or a thumb screw on there. And I think if I remember correctly, I actually kind of ended up tweaking the nuts a little bit so that there would be tension on this to hold it in place so that it didn't turn easy. But you can do all kinds of stuff to make that work. Anyway, so flexible copper, rigid copper. And there is a junction here that goes from half inch to 3/8 on the elbow. I think that's fairly normal stuff. Everything else is just things that I got from the hardware store or manufactured myself. Like these I made from copper tubing. I split them down the middle. It might have been bigger copper tubing. And anyway, I made them go the way I wanted them to go so that I could put screws in them. And I haven't messed with these in quite some time. Anyway, so that's more than enough on these, and I will let this go.